continue our tribute to Dorothy B. Hughes with a 1943 movie from RKO, The Fallen Sparrow, with starring John Garfield, Maureen O'Hara. Really a vintage film from the middle of World War II that talks about a really forgotten conflict, the Spanish Civil War, that has just kind of faded from the public consciousness. But I am really thrilled tonight. We have a special guest, one of the stars of the movie, and as far as I'm concerned, a living legend of show business. Her resume includes The King and I. She invented the role of Kiss Me Kate, along with many other films and TV shows, but she is the epitome of the great Broadway musical star. Please welcome, who just recently celebrated her centennial, the one and only Miss Patricia Morison, ladies and gentlemen. Please. Thank you so much for coming, Patricia.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Well, how could we not? We were talking a little bit earlier, and this particular movie, you knew John Garfield before he was John Garfield.
Yes, Garfinkel.
Garfinkel. What do you remember about Garfield and working with him in this film and earlier on?
Well, in the early days in New York, we had a wonderful group theater.
Right, he was in the group theater.
He was one of the strong arms of the group theater. And it was a joy to be able to work with him out here.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You had such a diverse career when you first came to Hollywood. It was almost as though Hollywood didn't know quite what to do with you. What happened?
Well, they signed me from a Victorian operetta that I was doing in New York called Two Bouquets, and incidentally, Alfred Drake was my leading man in that.
Oh, so you went back. This was before Kiss Me Kate.
Yes, long before, 1938. And when I arrived at Paramount, I said, I'm a singer. They said, we don't want singers. And so I said, okay. So they decided to plan. They had the idea of what they wanted me to be, and I went along with it.
Yeah. How long did you went along with it? I read a quote, and I don't know if this is accurate, that you said at one point you ate your way out of your Paramount contract. Is that accurate?
Well, honey, I was making money for a first time in a long time.
Yeah.
And I had a house in Beverly Hills. I had my parents, and I brought two cousins over from England to escape the bombing, and I was living it up. and I was also eating it up. Yes, I lost a lot of roles because I got too heavy.
Oh. One of your early films, Persons in Hiding, that you got a lot of good reviews from that.
That was my first film.
Yes. What was the first film experience like, particularly working with a kind of different leading man in J. Carrol Naish, a great character actor, but not necessarily a leading man?
Well, I was brand new. I mean, it was my first movie.
Right.
And I'd seen him in films, so I was a little in awe of him. Mm-hmm. But no, it worked out very well.
Mm-hmm. One of the films that we've shown here several times is Kiss of Death, and you played a major role in that, but somehow that role got cut out. How did that happen?
You know, I've forgotten.
Oh, well, it was. I think it wasn't it about the censor, because you were Victor Mature's wife, and when he went to prison in the movie, they had you.
Oh yes, no, they had a scene. We shot it in the Italian area downtown New York, and in the scene, I decided to commit suicide, and I leave my baby at the church. And I go into my kitchen and I turn on the oven and I put my head in the oven. And then I had a big letter from Darryl Zanuck. This is a breakthrough role. You're going to really see how wonderful an actress you are. And it was all cut out because the censors wouldn't allow it.
Yeah, suicide was a forbidden subject.
No.
And it wasn't because Darryl was trying to chase you around his desk in his office. So.
Not entirely.
Now, one of the things that we talked about when you were dining tonight, a story that I had not heard, is that Louis B. Mayer was crazy about you. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, you want to really hear that?
Yes, yes. See, of course.
No, well, I had a lovely friend called Lily Messenger, who was the head of the story department for Louis B. Mayer, very close to him. And I was painting her portrait, and I go every Sunday to our house to work on the portrait. And then one day she said to me, "Pat, my husband and I are going to Mr. Mayer's for dinner. Would you like to come?" I said, "Sure." So I go up to this fabulous house, and here's this big table, and there's Louis B. Mayer at one end, and one of his daughters in the middle. And all he did was talk about himself and his and how he started, which was fascinating because he was one of the pioneers in the movie industry.
Yes, he was.
And then it became a sort of a Sunday ritual. And then one of his lady friends called me up one day and said, "Pat, I have something very important to talk to you about. Would you please come over?" And I did. And she said, "Pat, Mr. Mayer is very much in love with you and would like to marry you. And the day you become engaged, he will settle, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands on my parents and all this and that." And I looked at her and I said, "Lily, you must be crazy." First of all, he didn't ask me himself. Secondly, it's not the slightest, hasn't got the slightest hint in my mind. And then she said, "Do you know what you're doing?" I said, "Yes, of course I do." So I didn't marry Mr. Mayer. Then Kiss Me Kate happened, and I went to Broadway. And he married a lovely lady called Lorena Danker,
Right.
whose husband was a PR man, and they told me that when he came to New York on his honeymoon, that he was at the back of the theater every night.
Oh, my goodness.
It was nice to hear.
That was nice to hear.
These things happen.
Not to everyone, Patricia, just to you.